What's going on, everyone? Garth here from Archisalvage. Tonight I'm going to go through this box of stamps with you. I set this aside in the last few years to be looked at a later time. As with most resellers who get these kinds of things, it's a little bit tricky to find time to look at it because there's a lot of stuff that's not very interesting to collectors, and it takes a fair amount of time to go through it. But it's been sitting and it's a cold winter day, and I thought this might be fun to take a look at what's here. I know there's a lot of countries in here, some Australian, lots of New Zealand, lots of European countries. But I'm just going to quietly go through and show what's in here and try to set aside the Australian stamps to take a closer look at. Most of these stamps are used and many of them are hinged. I don't think any are on paper still. There are a few in here from countries. I believe that's China, but it looks like the shape of China in the map. But this one, for instance, I would need help to find out where that is. Most likely what I will do is either build, lots of 10 or 20 or a sheet full, depends how much there is, but for each country, and try to sell them that way. But if it comes to pass that it's too much effort, I'll just do a giant auction. Most stamp collectors are really organized. What I find challenging with stamps is that when you do buy old collections, they tend to be either stuck all over pages, or if they're in books that you can organize them in, they're often very sort of grotesque. A lot of dust and junk in the mix. Somehow it gets dirty despite being closed for years at a time. But so these are the ones that we've kept to look more closely at, not for any other reason than we thought they were cool looking, I would have to say. Like I said before, it's something we don't usually get time to look at. I think I've had a shop on eBay for some time, and I think I keep a few stamps up for sale, but I can't remember the last time I actually sold a stamp. earlier this year, maybe. But on the other side of that, stamps are much easier to keep a hold of than, say, furniture or whatever. That's one of the things I love about selling coins, is that coins can just sit in a box for however long. And oops, sorry about that. We lost our focus, sorry. There we go. I was thinking when I set these revenue stamps aside that they'd be pretty cool, but I have a feeling there are a lot of them around. This is a RAF, Army RAF. Yeah, so that's kind of, we thought that was kind of cool, but I don't know what necessarily that's collectible or anything. There's a few Australian coming up now, I think. I think that one's pretty common. So if you're a reseller, what do you do when you get stamps? Do you just pass them on? Do you give them to your friends? What's your take on dealing with things like that? I gotta look that up. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. Porto, I think I've got, but is that Bahar Porto? Probably wrong. Anyway. A lot of counter stamped New Zealand for some reason. I'm not sure why this particular person had that. It must have been just the time period, perhaps. I doubt they specifically collected them. I'm just looking for some Australian here. This. Australian $1 stamp from, I'm not quite sure when. Race. I think there's another grease break one here. Alright, let's. Alright, so there's an Australian one. Wartime one. One thing I wanted to ask people that know a lot more, I must, I'm not sure if I said it already, but I am not an experienced stamp collector. So one of the things I've been wondering is, how do you tell, for instance, if it doesn't have a cancellation mark on the front, how can you tell whether the gum is intact and that it's an unused stamp? Like, for instance, is this an unused stamp or is this a used stamp? This one I'm not 100% sure on. I'll call it used because I don't know any different, but you know, that's, if it's got a cancellation mark on it, that's pretty obvious, right? But anyway, that's a question. If you've got any advice on that, I'm happy to hear about it. There you go, there's a good Australian stamp. I think there's a 10 shilling one in here somewhere. Here's another one that I thought, well, maybe that's a new, you know, an unused stamp. This, I couldn't tell for sure. This one is nice and shiny on the back. I thought, well, maybe that's my cue, you know. But I don't, you know, is it true that they're always shiny like that if they're unused? I'm sure Google could tell me a lot about it, but I want to hear from you guys and gals. See, to me that one looks like it's possibly unused. Oh no, see, there's the cancellation mark. But again, I look at the back and I say, well, it's not hinged anyway, but you know. Tearing it, but possibly unused. Okay. Five hours later. I know this one isn't a very good one. Well, I think it's not a very good one. I suppose the goal of today's video is to find enough Australian stamps to do a listing and then, you know, photograph it and put it up. We've probably found $1 worth so far. Where'd I put you there? Fair number of Pakistan service stamps in here as well. So, I mean, that would be an obvious listing if you can group that. You know, anything that's alike. Yeah, that's a classic symbol. I believe that's Iran, the lion with the sword. Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, it's printed right on it. That helps. Where'd you go? There you are. Sorry, I'm trying to organize these off camera. See, that's a shame, isn't it? Nice looking stamp, except it has stains, and I mean the design of it, and then it's got a hinge on the back. Not very good. Oops, dropped the Yugoslavia stamp. Oh. Alright, let's switch it around. We're going to do the hokey pokey. I'm going to cheat a little bit. What's this? There you go, Australia. Postage, twopence, halfpence. Tuppence, sorry. That's interesting. Should I tip them out? Probably not. No. Alright, so I'm just going to turn these over. Where are they? New Zealand. New Zealand. Somewhere with a Middle Eastern flavor. Oops. The Australian here, maybe. That's as common as, I believe. I spotted an Australian stamp and I'm going for it. That's actually, is that a decent looking one? Maybe. Well, that's interesting. Oh yeah, it's definitely used. It has a light cancellation mark here. That's Iran. Where is Iran? Where? Israel. Who knew that stamp collecting was thirsty work? Alright, we got more revenue. Yeah, that might still be in use. Well, maybe not. Where is it? I know I've got another USA stamp here, I just can't find it. No idea. do it this way. There's someone we all know. South Africa. The way this is going, this could be a mini-series, the way it's, how long it takes to go through, right? Another New Zealand. There's a German wartime one. Austria. I don't really like the design of that one. Let's look for some more Australian. It's a decent looking Australian stamp. That's cool, whatever that is. We are already 20 minutes. I've got 20 minutes of footage already. I take that back. There are some on paper. As you can see, there are quite a few stamps here that we haven't looked at yet. This video is starting to get pretty long. I might leave the rest of these for another adventure. But what I will do, as I finish this one off, let's see if we can find another Australian first. One more Australian or 10 more? What's this one? There we go. That's a decent one. Oh, we got two in the mix. There's one. Ooh, here we go. Oh, look at that. That is in bad shape. That's definitely not mint unhinged, right? Alright. Stamp jokes. I'm sure everyone loves them. Well, I think it's clear there are far too many stamps to go through for one day. So what I might do is save the rest of this for another time. Tell you what, why don't we organize the Australian stamps and then we can call that a day. What I'll do with this is decide how to break up the lots, whether it's one or multiple, I don't know. Maybe a single stamp that's worth a couple bucks, maybe not. If I had to guess, I'd say that everything Australian that I'm putting together now is maybe worth 10 bucks. But, you know, a lot of you resellers would have already listed 50 shirts by now or whatever. And if you do buy abandoned storage, you'll eventually have to deal with this, at least in a small way. I think it was, yeah, just last year, just before we moved up here, there was a lot for sale in Sydney. I am going to stack over the top of each other. Then it was a storage unit full of stamps. There were probably 250,000 or more stamps, maybe millions of stamps, I'm not sure. We couldn't afford to buy it because we were in the middle of moving. I don't think it went for a lot of money, maybe less than $1,000, I think. But can you imagine the work? There are many more Australian stamps in that mix, I'm sure, but they're all going to be mostly like this. I'm pretty confident there are no kangaroos. I'm pretty confident there are no state like New South Wales or Victoria type stamps. Well, even looking at just a few examples, it's clear there's a lot of work there to understand just exactly what you've got with stamps and what they're worth. I think we're going to take that lot and put it up as one auction and go from there. Anyway, I'm out of time for today. If you enjoyed today's video, we'd appreciate a thumbs up. Possibly think about subscribing if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.